So in our mystery box in front of us here, we have the Audial S5 DAC. Now, Audial is a brand that you may not have heard of, but in fact, Roja, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly, Pedja, my apologies if I haven't, has been around since 2006. And his DACs, if you look online, you will find there is a community of audio, I would say, lovers to the extreme. And when you read some of the reviews, it starts to make some sense as to why there is such, I would say, a great deal of interest around what Pedja is doing with audio. And the key element to this, and one thing that surprised me when I was reading the specification, is this DAC uses the Philips TDA1541. Now, for those of you who are new to digital, this may not mean anything to you whatsoever, but if you look through some of the forums and the sort of general chat about these chips, is that they are very hard to get. So kudos to Pedja for having a supply of these. But what makes them unique is they are true multi-bit. And the theory is that when you build one of these correctly, and there's a lot of very interesting and incredibly surprising technology used in his DACs, is that they have the potential to give you one of the most analog sounding digital devices currently available. Now, I've not heard this DAC, we've taken this completely on spec, but what we have read and what we know about this chipset is that it does have this potential. And I would say at a very sensible price, it does appear to offer something that isn't available at this kind of price point. So I'm going to quickly unbox this. We're going to get it set up. We're going to have an initial listen, and then I will sit on the couch and tell you exactly what we heard. It's quite a while since I did an unboxing video, and this is our very infamous slicer and dicer, the good old Stanley 99E. We have had this since we opened our business, and it is like a member of our family. It is something that our unboxing videos would be incomplete without. So there we go, Stanley 99E, still in great shape and looking good after all these years. Right, let's put it to work. So here we have the testing certificates, all the frequency testing charts included there. I won't go through these, but that's a very nice touch. It also shows that this unit was manufactured on the 21st of November, so only a few days ago. This particular unit is in white, and it has the optional transformer coupled balanced connectors. Packing is good and robust. I think that would certainly stand most, I would say, mishandling by most carriers. Those of you that are familiar with most carriers are not the most careful in the world. And it is pretty weighty, I've got to say. This has got a unique toroidal output transformer, but my initial impression on the build, wow, this is impressive. Very, very impressive. One of the changes from the S4 to the S5 is the inclusion of the power button on the front panel, which I know most people would definitely want to have. Anyway, let's get it set up and then I'll report back shortly. Wow, that was one of the most fascinating half hours I think I've experienced for quite some time. And the reason I say that is this DAC, and I'm going to say this right from the start, I would say this is one of the best DACs you can buy at this price point. And I don't say that flippantly, and it's based on a lot of years of listening experience, and the real surprise is this is brand new. We've just taken it out of the box. We've run it for about, I would say, an hour just to get it properly warmed up, and normally I would say most new DACs, I wouldn't give them a credible listen for a few days. You know, you've got to run them, I would say 10 days minimum, 24/7 to get them properly burnt in. So I know this DAC will 100% improve with burn-in. The fact that it sounds so great out of the box has been an absolute revelation. Now, when I was doing the unboxing, I did touch on the DAC chipset, and it's from Philips. It's the TDA1541A. Now, this first came out in 1989, believe it or not, and it ended production in 1995. So the fact that there are those still around that can create an incredible audio device like the Audial S5 is just incredible. Some of the best CD players that we've ever had this chipset in them. And I remember the Abingdon Music Research CD players, the 777 and the 555, which again used these. In their day, they had some of the best reviews of CD players ever. And the whole design ethos that Pedja has created with this DAC is incredible. You know, toroidal output transformer, never heard of that before. The design lowers the noise floor. The DAC is silent. There's just no noise from it at all. There is a website called the Everyday Audiophile, and if you want to read a bit more about this DAC initially, there's a great review on there. It's become his reference DAC, and he just simply describes it as sublime. The thing that strikes me is the sense of realism this DAC brings, and I can't believe I'm saying this from just an initial listen. It really has, honestly, it has really taken me by surprise. And at this price point as well, the build quality is as good as anything I've seen, £15,000–20,000. So again, I doff my hat to Pedja for his absolutely commendable attention to the detail and the build quality of this DAC that he has created. There's a lot of you who have never heard of audio. Pedja Rožič, as I hope I've pronounced that correctly, he's been around since 2006, so this is not some new company by any means. And you can tell there is a lot of evolution gone into this. It is, if this was made by any manufacturer, they would be proud to have it in their portfolio purely on how it looks. I think the aesthetics are nice and clean and simple. The build quality and the panel fit, everything about this DAC just oozes quality. It's remarkable for the price. I'll quickly go through some of the spec here. So those of you who know about this chipset will also know that it has got an incredible reputation. There are many resources that you can look at that will tell you a lot more about it, and what I'll do is I'll put some of these links in the video description below. But it's a non-oversampling but real multi-bit DAC, and that's what separates it from others. It'll go up to 384 kilohertz. It's got galvanic isolation and two very low jitter master clocks, which is again another key piece of specification. Another key element, it's got true 75 ohm SP-Diff BNC connection. Now that might sound like stating the obvious, of course it should be 75 ohms, but I think on actual measurement a lot of devices don't reach that kind of level. Very low output impedance, which again gives this sense of realism. You can also have a 30 ohm transformer coupled output, balanced or RCA. We've got the balanced transformer coupled output. At this point in me talking about this device, I've not had the opportunity to test it balanced, and we've been using the Eversolo DMP-A6 as a transport only. It's the master edition, running at USB. Again, I've not had a chance to test it on other inputs like the BNC, for example, but we will be doing that over the coming weeks. And in fact, the arrival of this DAC is quite timiest, because if you look at the latest issue of HiFi Choice, you'll see there's a DAC group test there, and in there is the Synthesis Roman. There's also the Musical Fidelity DAC in there, and there's also the Project DAC, all at different price points, all of which are in our portfolio, and all of which got awards in this test. So it will be very interesting to test the Audial against particularly the Musical Fidelity and the Synthesis DAC, which is a tube DAC as well. So we plan to do that. Probably that's going to be January. We're waiting on our new Synthesis demo DAC coming through from the factory, and when that arrives we'll get a chance to put it through its paces. But that said, the initial impression from unboxing the Audial is just, it's incredible. I'll quickly move on with some of the other specification here. We've got some of the best resistors. We've got Allen Bradley and Vichy carbon resistors. We've got some fantastic semiconductors from Toshiba, and we've also got Panasonic PPS, OSCon and Elna Silmic 2 capacitors as well. This is like the wish list of most audio devices, to have these components internally. The thing that I would say really stands out, the sound staging from this DAC is just, I'll use the Everyday Audiophiles quote of sublime. I am just staggered. Went through a whole range of tracks from Fink, the Eagles, Jimi Hendrix, there is John Coltrane, we did in there, Miles Davis, and every single track that I played, it took me actually to drag myself away and sit down and do this video. I was enjoying the music that much, and that, when you lose track of time, really tells you a lot about how good a product actually is. Again, talking about the lower output impedance, this brings more definition and refinement, and of course it brings about this very much tonally correct soundstage and presentation. The thing I would say, and again I've spoken about this in past videos, is that I really do like, I think, the non-oversampled sound. I think there's a level of realism when it is done correctly, and I will categorize this DAC as doing it correctly because clearly it has been done correctly. And I think you can see from the previous S4 model, which I've never heard, but looking online and reading what people said about it, to the S5, there is a clear evolution of improvements, and some of the technical changes that Pedja has made are very obvious. As a violinist and a guitarist, I look for that natural sound, and in the system that we had here, which was, as I said, it was the Eversolo DMP-A6 Master Edition, the Audial S5, the Musical Fidelity A1, the new version, and into the Wharfedale Dovedale loudspeakers. In this room, it was just a great sound. It is a sound that I could live with every single day of my life. There was not a piece of music that I played that didn't make me want to play more. And there's, you know, Sanson, Danse Macabre, the opening sequence of that classical piece of music, it starts very delicately, and the subtle nuances of the violin were so beautifully presented. You could really hear the bow on the strings, and just that, the texture was just phenomenal. And as it builds and builds and builds, there comes to a great crescendo, and you know, there's a huge transient, and in other systems that can start to sound compressed. But with the Audio taking care of the digital conversion, there was suddenly air and space that I'd not heard. And even on systems costing a lot more, and I'll tell you now, if you were to come in and listen to this DAC, you would never ever guess its price. You just would not. Looking at its build alone, you would double the price. And I think this is where Pedja deserves a huge compliment, because in my opinion, there is no doubt he could have asked a lot more as a manufacturer, or he could raise the retail prices worldwide for this DAC and it would comfortably sustain that new asking price. But no, he has built something that is what I would say a true reflection of the most incredible value for money you can get, and all the better for it. It brings it into the price point where some people can actually afford to buy it, and that in itself is a great thing. So in summary, it's an initial listen. We've not had the chance to compare it against anything else, so I'm basing it purely on my own sonic memory, but also trusting that I know what I think denotes a good sound for me. And this DAC most certainly has all the attributes that I would personally want in a DAC. So it'll be interesting to see how the burn-in evolves in terms of the sound staging, the sonic presentation and so on. It can only improve. And then when we put it up against some others in its peer group, which are very similarly priced DACs, how it performs then. So what we will plan to do is to do our blind listening test that we've done before. So we will put that up against the synthesis, and we'll do the blind testing. We'll do that against the musical fidelity blind testing, and then we'll do the musical fidelity against the synthesis blind testing, and just see how the voting goes. But that will be in the new year. In the meantime, we have today received our shipment of the Ever Solo DMP A8s. I think they're all sold apart from one. We've got one left, which if you go onto our website, you can still buy it, I believe. We have ordered more, but the initial batch are almost completely gone. I'm not sure if we'll get any more this year. There is a small possibility we'll get some in December, but we will be featuring this in upcoming videos. And again, we will be doing blind testing against some of the others that you saw in our group test that we did some weeks back. And that will be fascinating to see how the Ever Solo performs. But anyway, that's in a future video, but they have all arrived, and there's going to be some very happy people tomorrow when they receive their brand new A8s. So I look forward to seeing a bit of peak in social activity in social media in terms of activity around the A8 and seeing what people's initial impressions are. So there we go, an incredible introduction to what I would class as an absolute gem of a DAC. I'm so privileged and pleased that we are representing Audial in the UK. It does feel a privilege when you come across something so beautifully built, designed and implemented. It's where there is nothing that should be done, hasn't been done, and it's very clear that this is someone who builds products from their soul, and it is so apparent in the sound presentation. He's clearly built something that he himself would happily live with daily and all day. So I'm going to take this home, and it may never return from there, but who knows. We have to get it out for review, so that's something we will be arranging. As ever, every week, if you've enjoyed the videos that we're putting together, if you've enjoyed the content of this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really does mean a great deal, and I want to thank everybody that has subscribed in the last few weeks. When we committed to doing videos pretty much weekly, I think we've had one break due to staff holidays, but we've more or less doubled our YouTube subscriptions, which is fantastic, and I really want to thank each and every one of you that just took the time to subscribe. We genuinely appreciate it. The other thing is, which I've mentioned before, is we have a newsletter. In fact, it's due out the day after this video is released. So on Friday, tomorrow, this video comes out on Thursday. Friday, our newsletter comes out. Why not subscribe to our newsletter? Because we have early bird opportunities at our best part exchanges, which we offer initially to our newsletter subscribers. But you also have access to very special offers that you will not get anywhere else. And again, if you subscribe and you feel it's not for you, then you can unsubscribe straight away. It's really easy. It's one click, you're subscribed, one click, you're unsubscribed. Again, in our video description, I will put in the details of how you can subscribe to our newsletter. Finally, I wish you a great week listening to music. I've had the most incredible half hour listening to this new Audial DAC, and I honestly can't wait to spend some more time with it to see how burn-in improves it. I love it already, so how can it get any better? I'll tell you once I speak to you next time. And on that note, thank you very much for watching the video this week. I wish to see you next week. I hope that you'll stick around and support us as you always do. And until then, please take care.